What's going on, everybody? It's BroncoJuggalo, and I am here to discuss my top 10 horror directors. Now, the top 5 horror directors list was created by Hellhound from the Horror and Metal channel. I do top 10s. So I am doing his top 5, but I'm going to put the extra 5 people on there as you can call them honorable mentions if you want, or you can just call it a top 10. I don't think he'll mind too much. He's a good buddy of mine. I'm pretty sure he'll be cool with it. So my first of my honorable mentions, or my number 10, is Ronnie Yu. Now, the reason Ronnie Yu is at number 10 is because he's only done 2 horror films, at least here in America. I haven't seen all of his Chinese films and things like that, but I love the 2 horror films he did. Both of those horror films are awesome. One of them is one of my favorite horror films of all time, and those would be Bride of Chucky and Freddy vs. Jason. And I love both of those films. But because he's only done those 2 films that I know of as a horror, that's why he's at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is the Japanese master of horror, Takashi Miike. And I've heard people pronounce it Mike, but I'm pretty sure it's Mike. Because I think I've heard him talk, and he says it's Mike. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyways, he has done Audition, Ichi the Killer, Yakuza, Assassin, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he's a great, great director, and I really love his movies. Coming in at number 8 is Eli Roth. I think Eli Roth really did a lot of good stuff with his debut and things like that. I really love Hostel. I love Cabin Fever, The Green Inferno. He's got some really great titles under his belt. And just an awesome horror director. Coming in at number 7 for me is Marcus Nispel. Marcus Nispel directed 2 of my absolute favorite remakes. He directed the 2009 Friday the 13th, and he directed the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Both of those movies I like more than their original counterparts. I love those 2 films. I think they're absolutely amazing. Coming in at number 6 is Richard Donner. Richard Donner is a legend in filmmaking. He is responsible for the Superman franchise, practically, the Lethal Weapon franchise, and so many more. But for me, his biggest contribution in my life is The Omen and The Omen Part 3. I love those movies so much. The Omen is one of my favorite movies of all time, and in my opinion, one of the scariest movies of all time. And The Omen 3 is flat out disturbing, and I love that movie. It's so good. That is it for my quote-unquote honorable mentions and my top 10 through number 6. I'm going to get into Hellhound's top 5, so go over and check out my buddy Hellhound from the Horror Metal channel. Coming in at number 5 is a director who's had his ups and downs, and people like to give him a lot of shit, even people that are fans of his franchise. And nobody ever gives him crap as a writer. But as a director, he's gotten some shit, and I don't think it's justified. He did have one kind of shit movie, but since then, I think he's really gotten it together. And that is Don Mancini. I fucking love Don Mancini. I think he's a great director. I think his visual sense and visual style is fucking amazing. And he proved that in Curse and in Cult. The dark gothic look of that movie in Curse, and then the sterile white clean look of the Asylum and Cult. Everything just looked so amazing in both of those films. And I think they were very well directed, very well written, and I love those movies. Wasn't a big fan of Seed of Chucky, but it looked pretty good. Coming in at number 4 is a man who was responsible for one of my favorite franchises, and, well, I don't know if you can actually call it a franchise anymore, but trilogies, I guess you could say, in the superhero universe. And that's the Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire. This person is, of course, Sam Raimi, who is the director of the immensely legendary and popular Evil Dead franchise. Not to mention Drag Me to Hell and a few other horror movies. And I just love Sam Raimi. So awesome. Such a great, great director. Coming in at number 3 for me is James Wan. Now, James Wan has directed 2 of my favorite horror movies of all time. And those are Saw and The Conjuring. I love both of those films. I believe James Wan is an unbelievable director. I think he's going to be one of those huge crossover directors He just did Aquaman, which blew me away. I fucking love that movie. Still say it's better than the whole MCU. But that's just my opinion. Coming in at number 2 is the legend himself, the man who was responsible for my favorite horror movie of all time, and that is John Carpenter. Now, people may say, well, why isn't he your number 1 then? Well, it's because the person at number 1 has more movies that I love more than John Carpenter does. John Carpenter has Halloween. I love Halloween. And I like all of John Carpenter's other movies, for the most part. I really like The Thing. I really like Village of the Damned. I really like The Fog. I really like Christine. I even really like The Ward. Told you weren't the only one that liked The Ward, Jason. But yeah, I really like all of his movies, for the most part. I like most of his movies. But the director that touched me more, aside from Halloween, is my number 1, and that is Wes Craven. Especially when I was younger, Wes Craven was my favorite director of all time, still is. But when I was younger, A Nightmare on Elm Street was my favorite horror movie of all time. Now it's Halloween, and Nightmare on Elm Street is my number 2. And it's barely below Halloween. I do this all the time, but Halloween's here. Nightmare on Elm Street is like right here. They're touching. They're practically touching. I love that movie. I love New Nightmare. I love Last House on the Left. I think that is a movie that gets such shit from people for no reason. And it's not as brutal as people make it out to be. It really isn't. It's all in your mind. And that's the amazing power of Wes Craven. He put all that shit in your mind. But the movie itself is not that brutal. Just my opinion. He's responsible for Wishmaster, which I love. Even though he may not have directed, he did produce, and he, presented those. I love those movies. The Scream franchise, you got to give it to him for bringing back the slasher genre again. Without Wes Craven, we wouldn't have slashers today. I firmly believe that without Wes Craven, there will be no slashers right now. The list goes on and on with Wes Craven. People Under the Stairs, The Serpent and the Rainbow. So many great films that he has made that I absolutely love. Cursed, I really like Cursed. People shit on that movie all the time, and I like that movie. Wes Craven knows his audiences. He and John Carpenter both have that really awesome gift of knowing their audiences and delving deep into the fears of their audiences. There's a reason why Wes Craven aims his movies at teenagers and why teenagers play such a big part in his movies. And that doesn't bother me at all. He's a master of horror. Now, I know this list may have disappointed a few people. They were expecting to see a lot more bigger names. George Romero, Tobe Hooper, Guillermo del Toro. All amazing directors. And all directors I really like. But these are the directors that really have touched me with their works. And that just make a lasting impression on my heart. So, Hellhound, I hope this satisfies you, brother. I know you only asked for 5. I did 10. I hope you don't mind. Anyways, guys, this is BroncoJuggalo saying peace.
I am what I am, and that's all that I am. I am what I am, I'm a hooligan. I am what I am, and that's all that I am. I am what I am, I'm a hooligan. I am what I am, and that's all that I am.